Oh, hello, and welcome to our show. How are you? One of the nice things of doing Dave TV and DCR TV is what is it? Oh yeah, all these cool books I get. People send me, the radio biz, local radio biz, send me cool books, and it's okay. It's the 12th of December. How you doing? Really cool books like remember this one from Mark Fisher. Excellent book, Something in the Air. And a lot of stuff about Don Geronimo and Mike O'Mara and the local Washington radio and national radio and how everything's changed. Really great book there from Mark Fisher. And they, of course, these people, they autograph their books for me, of course. And, of course, Johnny Holiday, From Rock to Jock. Great book. And this one sent to me last year, Butterfly Knife. Larry Matthews used to be a news guy over there at WMAL and all that. This is more of a fiction-y thing, but it's really fascinating. And, of course, the Junkies chasing Rocky and his little boxing career there. Really cool. And even TC. TC, remember TC over there on KYS and PGC and Real Talk, Real Meals, Smoothies. Really nice stuff. TC Pitt. Well, just got another book in today, or yesterday in the mail, the mailman. The mailman not only brought me a new pair of camos, as if I need them, I ordered on eBay, but brought me a really cool book, Living on the Air, Joe Cipriano. Now, you got to realize we moved down, my dad moved us all down to the Washington area in 1972. Okay, I was about 13 or 14 then, junior high, getting ready to go to Herndon High. And up in Philly, we lived in the Philadelphia area, New Jersey, and one of the things I listened to, of course, was AM radio. And AM radio was there, it was all AM radio for me. It was WFIL, WIBG. And we come down to Washington, and I'm turning around the AM dial, and there's just nothing to listen to. It's at night, you can't even hear any local stations. It's awful. There's Weem in Arlington and Wheel in Fairfax, and PGC was kind of like AM was, went off the air at night. You couldn't hear anything at night. And I said, what's wrong with Washington? And then I suddenly realized FM. That's where it's at. And this was, this was like 1974, something like that. And I suddenly realized, oh my goodness, there's a lot of cool stations on FM. And one of the stations that I really liked a lot was 93.9 WKYS. Now, it used to be the old I remember it was WRCFM. And it kind of had a bunch of different formats. It was easy listening for a while, and they played some jazz. And then somewhere around the early to mid-70s, it suddenly became this thing called WKYS Disco 939. And I wasn't a big disco fan. I was more into rock and stuff like that. But, I kept going back to KYS because it had a really nice sound. KYS, back in this 939 disco days, it was a little more than just playing disco. They just had this sound. And one of the best DJs on that station back then was a guy named Joe Cipriano. He just had this voice that just, it fit. The sound of that station was just so great, And, of course, Joe just sent me this book he just penned with his wife, Ann, who he met over there, who was a reporter. I'm not a reporter, but she was working at Channel 7 at the time when he was working here in D.C. for the number of, in the 70s, or, called Living on the Air. And it gets into his whole radio career and growing up and all that stuff and what he listened to. And, I haven't read the book yet. I just got it yesterday. But I was paging through the pages here, and I was looking through all of the D.C. things. And he talks about, working at WKYS and all that. And he said, like, the first day, WKYS is now owned by Radio 1, so it's over there in Silver Spring. But in this time, it was still owned by NBC. It was the old WRC-FM. And was there at 4001 Nebraska Avenue with Channel 4 and with the NBC News Bureau. And Joe talks about how, like, his first day at work in the basement of the building there, goes down, and there's David Brinkley. Hello. Saying hello to David Brinkley on your first day at work. And he said that was quite an interesting experience. But, it's just, he goes, WKYS was turned into Disco Stereo 93 KYS. We played it all. YMCA by the Village People. Gloria Gaynor, I Will Survive. Donna Summer. Donna Summer, ABBA, Barry White, the Commodores. It's wild. And just a lot of talking about his Washington radio days, and then eventually how the music, the disco format ended at KYS, and he kind of found himself out of a job, and then ended up just calling around area stations, and he called over to WRQX. Now WRQX 107.3. It used to be the old WMAL FM, and it was one of my favorite stations. There was a jock there. I think her name was Marlene Fox, and I always listened to her at night. And her, she had this sultry voice, and she would always say something like, if you're having a party, leave a trail. Or I don't know what she did, but it's a cool format. And I remember listening, and they flipped the calls to WRQX, and they remained album rock. And that's when Joe joined them. And he said that was kind of weird for him because he wasn't used to the album rock format. Well, it wasn't long after Joe joined WRQX that they suddenly flipped to become Q107 with a high-energy top 40 format they would go through the 1980s with. And he was talking about how he worked there and met folks like Doug. Remember Doug Limerick? He would do the newscasts on WRQX and all that. Q107. In our very first ratings book, Q107 buried all the other stations in the city. I struggled through the past months when I was fired from NBC. I took a job that didn't feel right, but I never lost faith in myself. I was back in top 40 radio, the #1 afternoon DJ at the #1 station in town. PGC at the time was the other major FM top 40 station. They were getting worn in the tooth. And so here comes Q107, and just kind of boom, right away, was a big hit station with Joe on the station. So anyhow, it's just really interesting, talking about working at the WRQX and eventually going on with his career and eventually ending up in LA and doing all the voiceover stuff and everything, and lots of cool pictures in here. Really good book. As I said, I still have to sit down cover to cover and read it, but anyhow, okay. Here he is in his that's Joe in his KYS days, with the mustache. There he is. That's the Joe I remember with that haircut. I remember listening to him a lot. Really, as I said, KYS had a wonderful, wonderful format back then, and it all. There's Joe and Stoney Richards. Stoney was brought in from L.A. to be on KYS back in the disco days, and there they are at the NBC, WKYS FM at the big sign out front of 4001 Nebraska Avenue. So really cool stuff there. Okay, Joe and Ann and their wedding. Okay, here's his Q107 picture. Oops, Q107. I think I have this. The Q sheet. They used to put this out. You could go to the local Kent Mill record shop or whatever, and they'd have a pile of these little pamphlets, and they'd have their top hits on it. That was a great station back in the day. In fact, I think that WRQX should go back to the old Q107 moniker. I really do. They kind of want to go challenge Hot 99.5 over there, and I think they need to go back to there. Some of these stations have such great heritages that they really need to capitalize on their heritage. But anyhow, Joe Cipriano, living on the air, and he writes, he penned a really nice little I love it. I love it when they do this. Someday I'm going to pass this on in my legacy. There we are. Dave, thanks for putting us on the front page. Well, I did. All the best. Joe Cipriano, 12-5-13. And people are going to say, well, Dave, you got a free book. You're going to talk it up. I like this. I feel like I'm working for QVC right now, This blender is the best thing ever. 5 easy payments. 5 easy payments will get you. Living on the Air. Living on the Air. I'm sure you can find it on Amazon. I'll put a link up. If you're watching Dave TV, I'll have a little link to this. You can probably just click below here, wherever on the Dave TV page, and check out the book. I highly recommend it if you're into Washington radio broadcasting. If you are, if you remember the old WKYS, the old WRQX, if you are just interested in the radio business, how somebody gets to be big and then goes on to do voiceovers. Joe's doing voiceovers all over the place. You may not recognize it, but you're watching TV and you hear announcers on shows and voiceovers, and a lot of that that's his voice on a lot of things. And you may not realize that this guy worked at in the Washington market there back in the late 70s. So very cool. Check it out. Living on the Air, Adventures in Broadcasting. Joe Cipriano. Yeah. Yeah, baby. All right, folks. Anything else going on this 12th day of December 19 or 19? I'm really getting old. 2013. Alan Leinwand. Remember Alan Leinwand? I remember Alan Leinwand back on the Don and Mike show. Back when Don and Mike were back on WJFK, I guess in the mid to late 90s or something. He was the general manager, and of course, one of Don and Mike's shtick was, they'd always pick on the management of the station mercilessly. And Alan Leinwand was the victim of their pranks for many years when he was the general manager of WJFK, Guy Talker with Howard Stern in the morning back then. And anyhow, Alan spent many years with CBS Radio here in the Washington area. Then he eventually went up to New York to work for CBS. And then he came back to Washington back in September of 2010 as director of ad sales for Radio 1 here in Washington. And he's just been promoted to be the market general manager of Radio 1's 5 stations here in Washington. So congratulations to Alan. And I'm sure he has a much easier job of it today. Nobody's mentioning him on the air, but I don't know. The latest radio ratings came out for mid-November. Actually, they call it the second week of December, but it's actually mid-November. And MAL's up to 8th place in the 6 pluses. But again, if you look at the 2554s, they're still 18th. So again, lots of oldies but goodies listening to WMAL there. Wow. Discovery Communications might buy HDTV and the Food Network. Someday we're going to have all the television stations owned by Sinclair and all the cable networks owned by Discovery. And all the cable systems owned by Comcast. So you'll just have 3 companies that they'll run everything. Your cable company will be Comcast, all the cable channels will be run by Discovery, and all the broadcast stations will be owned by Sinclair. That's the way the FCC is going today. Just, one company for everything. Just one company will own everything. So, and then maybe those 3 companies will then merge and just become one giant company, and we'll have one, that's the way the FCC is going. Way to go, FCC. All right, folks, thanks for watching Dave TV. Another weird thing yesterday, we get storms here in the Reston area where I do my show from, and power never goes out during storms. We can get 50-mile-an-hour winds and crazy things and ice storms, and power never goes out. And then you're sitting here on a nice sunny day like yesterday, and I'm typing in the radio ratings, and boom, everything goes down for 2 hours. I don't know. I talked to the Dominion, Virginia power guy yesterday, and he goes, well, the water from the snow melts went under some box somewhere and shorted something out. Because we have all underground utilities here. So we don't have any problem with ice and winds and thunder and lightning and snow, but we have melt. When melt gets into the ground, it gets down to the wires and it shorts things out. So I don't know. I guess you're going to have to dig up the wires and put new ones in. All right, folks. Thanks for watching Dave TV for the 12th of December, 2013. Check it out. Joe Cipriano, Living on the Air. Great read. Book 'em, Dano.